Welcome back. Today we are counting down the top 5 Nintendo missteps.
Oh, if only there were 5.
Number 5, the Virtual Boy.
Its only big tie-in game, like movie tie-in game it got, was Waterworld.
So, the issue that I have with the Virtual Boy, and I know a lot of people have many issues with the Virtual Boy, but Gunpei Yokoi, a very talented individual,
worked on the Wonder Swan.
Creator of the Game Boy, was working on the Virtual Boy. Nintendo was like, hey, the N64 is coming up, you need to release this. And he's like, nope, not ready, it's a prototype. And they're like, nope, you gotta get this out before the N64, we're releasing it now. So the Virtual Boy was essentially a prototype.
Yeah.
Which is okay if you're purchasing it for $1 million on eBay, but not okay for the general public. What would have been different with the Virtual Boy is, it probably wouldn't have had those awful stands. It probably would have had something solid. It probably would have had like a more comfortable way to play it other than doing this.
There probably would have actually been like, some work with it so that it could actually be portable.
Yeah.
Probably something so you could actually put it on your head.
Yeah, and it may have had a better launch lineup. Which does affect things. Those little things wouldn't have gotten rid of the red screen.
Like 5 games and then the total was like 10 games ever released?
It was like 10 or 12. There were a couple games that were Japan only as well.
Of course, Nintendo.
Yeah.
Not only are we going to release a small library, we're only going to release part of a small library.
Nintendo.
Oh boy.
Nintendo of America.
And didn't they fire that poor man over it?
The rumor is that they fired him and ostracized him from Nintendo. Some people say that that's not true. Some people say that's only a rumor and he left on his own accord. But what I have read basically was that he was shamed by the fact that the Virtual Boy failed and he eventually left to create the Wonder Swan.
Yeah. And plus, Japanese business culture is kind of complex, so it'd be hard for us to really figure out what they mean when various people, insiders, say things.
It's hard to tell.
It's weird over there.
It's hard to tell. Number 4, the Nintendo 64 Disk Drive.
Yeah.
We covered the hell out of this, as you know.
I've played it many times now, and it's got some interesting stuff, but I've enjoyed playing it a little bit, and I always wanted one as a kid, but I hate the idea of it. It just ruined so much. There were so many games. I mean, luckily, Legend of Zelda, the Ocarina of Time, or Ocarina of Time, that almost didn't happen because that was originally going to be a disc drive release. We didn't get the Earthbound 64.
I spent so much time on the disc drive version of it.
Yeah, that at that point it was like, well, we've only got so much time left in the console's lifetime. If we want to cut it back down to a usable game, they just had to cut and run.
Yeah. I think one of maybe 3 things should have happened. 1, it shouldn't have ever existed, and those great games would have just been made in cartridge format, and we would have gotten them. 2, the disc drive should have maybe come out on time, and it would have had a fighting chance. Or 3, I think that possibly the disc drive should have just been the N64.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't have been
gone
cartridge
with bigger
based.
discs and just have a big cartridge thing. If you want, have a few other modular parts, like we did the expansion packs, the whole thing that you pull out. But it's a kid's console, so keep it simple.
Exactly.
Nothing crazy. I don't want to solder stuff.
Number 3, friend codes and Nintendo's history with the internet.
Well, the internet is danger.
Very danger. It seems like they're like afraid of the internet. Even with the Wii U, like the Wii U and the 3DS, it's a lot better with the internet. Like Nintendo's kind of learned their lesson, but there's still some like abnormal things with Nintendo and the internet. Like for example, I was doing a multiplayer online Mario Kart 8 session.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you can talk, right? You can have a microphone, but you can only talk in the lounge. You can't talk to each other while you're actually playing.
Oh.
And
well, I mean, people might smack talk a little bit.
That's bad. That's bad. And on top of that, there's a microphone built into the Wii U controller.
But you need to get the headset.
And the weirdest thing about it is that in the 90s and early 2000s, Nintendo was totally embracing the internet. They were trying to, they had an internet service with RANnet, with the N64 Disk Drive.
The BS Satellaview.
The Satellaview, which was kind of like a proto-internet via radio waves from a satellite. It was kind of like internet, kind of like that.
Yeah.
You could download games via like satellite signal to radio waves.
It was still kind of technically an internet. It was, a large network.
It was kind of like that, yeah. So they loved it. They were all about it. And then something about it, like somehow they felt burned by it. And then they were just like, never again. Number 2, which is sequels and games that never came out in the US.
Yeah.
So there are some sequels that like you would think Nintendo would continue to release, like F-Zero. Like where was it for the Wii or the Wii U? Like
where was a solid sequel on the the Super Nintendo? Oh right, you only got it if you were in Japan and you had a BS Satellaview.
Exactly.
You downloaded it at the right time. Then it worked.
Or a sequel to the Game Boy Advance. F-Zero Climax never came out, and it was amazing. So we either don't get the games,
or sometimes we get the second one in a series, but then not the third one or the first one.
It's just so weird.
We get the second one in the series, and then the first one 20 years later, and still not the third one.
In general, other than Mario, which they're just kicking the hell out of, because they finally realize, like, oh, Mario's my poster child. Like, I can just throw out as much as I want, and people will buy it, right? But other than like Mario, they're basically like, oh, people want this? No. Number 1, no console Pokemon game.
I get it. It's Pocket Monsters.
We get it. Handheld.
Oh my God, was that game... That was everything here in the 90s.
Yes.
And like
it still is extremely popular.
Yeah, it's still huge, even today.
Just like what our previous point regarding sequels, right? And not releasing games. If you have a franchise that is making you so much money, and they're genuinely good games, why don't you release it for the consoles and make more money? It just seems to make sense.
I mean, there was so much obvious, evidence in their market that it would have made tons of money. Yeah. Pokemon Snap was... Well, it was sort of interesting, and you might have had a little bit of fun playing it.
I thought that was going to be the console game. I thought that was going to be a legit Pokemon game.
But basically what it was is essentially the worst rail shooter ever made. We all have a bit of nostalgia for it, but it was pretty bad. But
write your hate comments
sold a ton. And it was really, really popular. I mean, that thing, in comparison to other Pokemon games, it's really weak. It sucks.
Yeah.
But... that sold like crazy. If they would have made a full thing, I mean, it could have been one of the top sellers the 64 ever had.
It seems like they're just going like, wait a minute, guys, we can't do that. It's Pocket Monsters, handheld. I can't give you a great game that would make me money. It's a win-win. That said, we do have an honorable mention.
Oh, yeah.
An honorable mention.
Dishonorable mention.
Dishonorable mention. Nintendo of America.
Yeah, you guys have really screwed us over.
Big misstep. Nintendo of America. You would think that your regional Nintendo sort of representation would be there to fight for you.
Yeah, like trying to be like, all right, we're gonna go and we're gonna scout out what games are in Japan. We're gonna try and bring as many as we can.
Bring those games in.
Come on, Reggie, give us Mother 3. How about this instead?
And so many times were they just like, really? I have to bring a game over here? Like, they were basically the ones responsible for us not getting Secret of Mana 2.
Yeah.
So they're just like, oh god, regionalizing. Oh.
I could kind of get that in the past where they're like, oh, well, regionalizing and, not only do you have to regionalize it, but you have to do a physical release. But nowadays, there's almost no excuse. You just have to regionalize it and then release it via, the internet, via the virtual console, the eShop, whatever. And it might also be Nintendo of Japan.
Yeah.
Like, you know what, you can't have these games. But
there are instances of stuff like that happening.
But still, you'd think your regional representative would be fighting for you, pushing for you. Hey guys, we're going to try to get this, we're going to try to get that. It just doesn't seem like that. Well, thank you very much for... Oh, that was really warm. Damn.
You've been holding it for like an hour.
I know. Oh my god, it was really like the warmest beer I've ever had.
Peed in it.
You peed in it. That's probably why. Thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Let us know your top Nintendo missteps. Now that said, we love Nintendo. Yeah. Don't get us wrong. We just feel that they've made some mistakes in the past. As any company does, we still love our big N, but it's okay to give some critiques now and again. So if you have critiques or missteps,
or death threats,
put them in the comments below.
Or send them to hardforgames@gmail.com.
We'll see you next time.
Or will we?
We might be dead.
We might be dead.
Might be dead.
Nintendo might kill us.
That's true.
Together.